Hola, what is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Reliable HVACR podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed, like, comment. If you're listening to this over on the podcast, like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever it is, it's a bit available on all platforms. Please leave us a 5-star review to help us get out to more people. I love doing this because it is good conversations with good people. Anybody is welcome. If you guys ever want to be a guest on this show, if you guys listen or watch any of my content, go ahead and message me. Come on, tell your story. That's what it's about. If there's any sponsors that want to reach out and support the show, go ahead and also reach out to me. My email's posted everywhere. Reliable HVACR956 at gmail.com is how you can get a hold of me. Speaking of sponsors, today's episode is brought to you by my favorite CRM, Jobber. If you guys want to use a software that helps us boost our business, whether it's invoicing, quoting, scheduling, keeping track of your team, price lists, our maintenance plan is in there. Now they help you with marketing and running campaigns through emails, all that stuff. And you can talk to your customer through texting in the customer hub. They can request work. You never have to pick up the phone. They can actually request work online through text. You can tell them that you're on the way. All the stuff that you would expect from a professional CRM. If you guys want a free trial and discount, go to getjobber.com/reliable HVACR. Also, VETO Pro Pack, the best tool bags in the game. I know people tell me the first thing is always the price. Let me tell you, other brands that I used to get at the supply house never lasted me. So in that short amount of time, I was buying several of those bags when I could just buy one VETO Pro Pack tool bag. And if you want to go check them out, go to vetopropack.com. You can also get them at any supply house or place that you buy equipment. They usually have VETO Pro Pack, and they just came out with the MB3 Blackout, which I am super excited for because I actually had a hand in some major design in that bag, and I hope to continue to work with that. But I use the MB3 Blackout as my favorite. I also use the Wheelers. I use a lot of their tote bags. I even have something in my van that just holds bottles and miscellaneous things, and it's made by them too. They have a bag for every scenario, so you won't be disappointed. Go check out VETO Pro Pack. And if you go to their website, go to the customer profile. You'll find me in there. You can learn a little bit more about me, and you'll probably see a lot of these YouTubers and people on Instagram that you might watch in that section. And when you're ready to level up your business, you can join BOSCH Home Comfort Pro. When you sign up, you get exclusive deals, priority technical support, and free marketing and advertising resources. By choosing BOSCH, you can represent one of the largest HVAC brands in the market with over 100 years of industry expertise. Join today at boschhomecomfort.us/HC Pro. And a big thanks to all the sponsors that make this show possible and moving forward. You'll hear more from local HQ marketing, NAVIEN, and DIVERSITECH throughout the show. And don't forget that I have another podcast/live stream every Thursday night, the HVAC Nights. You can find us on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. It's me, Jake, and Curtis. You might know them already. And we just talk shop about our work week and life stuff. It gets crazy. It gets uncensored. It's a fun time. So come check us out live every Thursday on YouTube. And it's available on all podcast platforms later that week. If you ever want to keep up to date with anything that I use, whether it's tool recommendations, Camel City Mill socks have been really great for me, and the Huxley work pants. I have discounts for a lot of these things that I use. You can find them in my website, reliablehvacr.net. So like I said, tool link, recommendations, discounts. I got merch there. You can request stickers. I will have my arm sleeves up for sale soon, so make sure to keep an eye out there. And if you just remember to go to the website, you'll always keep up to date with everything. On this episode, we have HVAC.NATE. You might have seen him on Instagram kind of blow up there. He's been on TikTok. He said he had some stuff on YouTube, so I'll make sure to leave all of that in the description so you guys can go follow him and support. He's representing the Indiana area. So we talk about his early career, because if you didn't know any better, you'd figure he'd be doing this a lot longer than he has. He's still in the first few years of his HVAC career, doing the most he can, soaking everything up, and turning out to be like a really good technician. So he's had a lot of experiences that have helped mold him and kind of be the technician that you guys have seen him. And if you haven't, we're going to get into all his experiences and story and the journey that he's taken. But for you guys that are watching here on YouTube, I'm sorry once again. This video and the last video, they were corrupted. There was no way of saving them, so I did have the audio, thankfully. So you guys are just going to hear the audio in this video, and yeah, enjoy the episode.
Honestly, it's been strange, strange month, because usually it's starting to get a little chilly here, so we're like actually making sense of the heating maintenance calls that we're running. But it's like the other day I got to a house and it was like 81 in the house, and her
Hmm.
air conditioner wasn't working. I was like, I'm here to do heating maintenance. So
Oh,
it's
you have
strange.
the heating maintenance, but it's overlapping with the no cools.
Right. It's crazy. But
And
yeah.
that's happened to me too, because our maintenance, well, we don't, honestly, we don't even have heating maintenance here. And it's funny because I had a comment on one of my old videos. I guess I mentioned, because I think it was on my YouTube channel. It was like the field piece wireless manometers, right? Like how to use
Uh-huh.
them, how to check gas, and what is it, your static pressure, right? And somebody commented, I guess they're from my area, they're like, oh, that is the realest thing I've ever heard, because around here I had mentioned that in our winter it's not really like that we need heating. It's just we open our windows and doors and we get free air conditioning because it's always so damn hot here.
Right.
So we don't have a lot of no heating, but I am on my AC maintenance. It falls in September. And
Uh-huh.
it's funny because like I've been going out and I'm trying to rush because I've been so busy. And then it's like, oh, by the way, our AC is not working or this is not working. I'm like, I'm just here for the maintenance, but all right. And like, that's why I'm so backed up, because every day that I've gone to these maintenance, it's like I'm there the whole day trying to fix something else. I'm like, why did
Right.
you wait? Why did you wait till maintenance? You didn't call this in earlier.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a weird shoulder season that, yeah, it's just strange.
And where are you guys located? What area do you
I
service?
I'm in northern Indiana, so like South Bend near Notre Dame, and we cover like anywhere from like out to Lake Michigan to probably about an hour and a half east of that, or east of Elkhart, Indiana. So our range is pretty broad, honestly. So.
And you guys do residential work, right?
The company I work for does mostly residential, but we do some commercial. We have quite a bit of commercial accounts, just to keep our commercial department busy. But we only have like 2 or 3 commercial guys, so it's mostly residential. Yeah,
Oh, so you don't do commercial, any of those jobs?
I dabble.
You dabble? Have you been on a
Yeah,
rooftop?
I have. Yes.
So
Yeah.
what do you enjoy more, the commercial side or the residential?
I think I like residential more, just because honestly, like I'm a people person. I like talking to people. So obviously on commercial, you don't do that as much. You still do, but
And
not as much.
that's what I like about it.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, just for me, I feel like I like residential more just because I like talking to people. So, yeah.
And that's an important part, and that's something, and I've said it over and over. I was never good at the customer service side, right? Because I'm like, and I
Right.
was like, oh, I'm commercial. I don't even need to do that, right? Like that's a residential tech's, responsibility. I
Right.
don't have to do that. No, you still have to do it in commercial, because you have managers, area managers, the owners, the people that come down and kind of evaluate everything, and the people that you gotta, submit your bills and invoices to and everything. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is a whole other. To say it's not the same thing as a homeowner, but it's a whole other aspect of it, because you got all these people that you got to keep happy and make sure that they keep calling you, because that's another thing is
Right.
there's competition out there. What's going to set you apart, what's going to make them call you back? And most of the time is just taking the time to get to know them, the relationship, getting them to trust you. Like that's the
For
same
sure.
residential or commercial. It's the same on both sides.
Yeah, it's interesting how those two overlap, but they're so different, like all the time. Like everything about them is different, except for the little things like customer service, like you said.
Yeah. Yeah, because like my dad is ultimate customer service person. Like he is like the
Oh,
guy
really?
that goes everywhere and he is instantly everybody's best friend, right? So
Oh, that's
like
cool.
when I started, and it's, I mean, this goes back to like before he even had this company, because he started our company and he came from another huge company that's here in Texas, worked his way up because he didn't even know the food service industry, right? He got a chance to
Mhm.
get hired there, worked his way up, started training other guys that, you know, do what he does. And then he was like the manager for this location here, hiring guys, being in the office. And that's kind of what made him start his own business, is he hated being in
Oh,
the
that's cool.
office. So you know, he's that guy. And when I started, I was just trying to get in and out, do my job. You know, I was good at fixing things. I was not good at talking to people. And I saw it firsthand from him when I started riding along with him, right? Like, oh, okay, ask about their day or ask about their house business.
Hmm.
You know, how is your family? You know, little conversation starters. And you know, sure enough, everybody wants to talk, right? Like that's just the
Yeah,
nature
right.
of people, is like you ask them a question, they might not come to you and talk to you, but if you ask them a question on an interest or anything like that, boom, you know, you spark a conversation there. This podcast is presented by Local. Local works tirelessly to help HVAC contractors rank higher on Google. They use an attack methodology to make sure that contractors dominate their local service areas and increase their market share and generate higher revenue. Reach out to Local at localhq.com/reliable. Mention me or the Reliable HVACR podcast, and you'll get 2 months of SEO for free.
I get that side of things. Like you're kind of there to do a job, and it's hard to kind of take the time to strike up that conversation with the person. But that goes back to the customer service thing, and then it's just cool the connections you see from that. Like it's like, oh yeah, you like this, I like this too, and it just strikes up a nice conversation that you can have with someone that you maybe wouldn't have had if you didn't push yourself to do something like that. So that's cool.
No, and I've had that. I've said it before. I've had complaints, like actual complaints to my dad, where they call him and they're like, he was here, but he didn't talk to us or he didn't say anything. I'm like, shit. Okay, I didn't know I had to do that.
Right. Yeah, it's almost like expected, honestly, like on a residential side of things that you like have a conversation with the customer. That's
Do you have
interesting.
the customers that like stick by your side and kind of talk through like when you're actually working?
Yes, and I also have the customers that watch over my shoulder and don't want to make conversation either. That's always
They
fun.
just want to like
Yeah,
watch.
they're sitting there with their arms crossed.
See, I have that in commercial too, because I do now on a rooftop. And before, like, I don't know, I didn't have the same attitude I have now. I had like a I come from a long line of people with short fuses. So like I was a little bit like that when I started, until I learned how to calm down, right? And
Right.
so before, like if they ever question me on something, I'm like, hey, you want to come up on the rooftop? Like I'll take you up there. But most 90% of the time they're gonna say no. I think I've only had like 2 or 3 people actually go up there with me.
Right.
Right. But when I work in the kitchen, that's a whole different story, because I work in kitchens, I do coolers and freezers and all that stuff. And I've had a couple of those that just, you know, their arms crossed or like, you know, looking at what you're doing. And I'm like, and sometimes they'll be like, are you doing that right? Are you doing this? I'm like, I'm the trained professional here. I think I know what I'm doing, right? You just got to watch what you say to them.
Right. For sure. That's funny. It's always fun getting questioned by people who called you out for the service.
Do you get
It's
a
just
lot of
funny.
people that are like DIYers and try to do their own work?
Yeah, for sure. It's funny. Going to a house and like seeing everything messed up, and they're like, yeah, I called you out because I tried this and this and it didn't work, so that's why you're out here. I remember once I went out to a house and they're like, yeah, I think the circuit board was bad, so I took it out and took it to a supply house and tried to match it. They wouldn't give it to me, so I came back and here's the circuit board, and they gave it to me. And I'm like, wait, so like all your wires are just hanging inside your furnace right now? I went to the furnace, and sure enough, the circuit board's gone and all the wires are everywhere. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is wonderful.
Did it take you a while to get that back together?
Yes, it did. It
Now,
did.
now on a DIY, I mean, I guess there's a good reason, or that's expected. Like they try to do it, they messed it up. That happens here and there.
Right.
I've actually seen that going behind other companies where that company,
Mhm.
and it was the same thing. It was a Linux RTU. This is the one that I famously always say almost kicked my ass because this customer had me out there and like they had four RTUs. I think damn near every one of them was down, right? These
Gosh.
were Linux. I can't remember the tonnage, but there was a Linux unit. They're all the same, and they had like three compressors in them, and they were big systems. And I go up there, and I'm like, okay, and then like you open up the cabinet, wire nuts, all the wires pulled from the boards, and I'm like, what did I get myself into?
Gosh.
And like I said, it almost kicked my ass because I a few times straight up wanted to say I can't fix it, I can't do it.
Right.
But I sat there. It took me a couple days to get to every one of them and just read the schematic, and I'm like, okay, what were they trying to do? Where do these
Hmm.
wires go? Putting everything back because this. I don't know if you've ever worked on the like commercial package units, but like the Linux ones are like that's a lot of stuff. There's the boards, the
Yeah.
compressors, the contactors, relays, like wires everywhere. So like that one took me a while to put back together, and that was another company that did that. So like a DIY homeowner, I get it. Another company, I'm like, what the hell were they thinking?
Right. Well, that's always fun when you see something like that, and then there's no wiring diagram as well. Like, oh my
Oh, I
gosh, what do you
tell
do?
Yeah, because I had a well, that's usually when I help my guys out, right? Because I had a call the other day about I think it was a defrost timer or the delay or something like that. And he's
Right.
like, I can't find the wiring diagram. It's like rubbed out, right? I'm like, all
Hmm.
right, like start checking here to here. You should have voltage or the like everything's like I always tell people when I learned or when it clicked for me is like when I learned everything is just like a switch or a safety in between all
Yeah.
these major components, right? Because
Hmm.
on his it was a timer. If you know how a timer works, when it goes in and out of defrost, you're good. If you have voltage
Right.
here, you're good. If you don't have it on the other end, something's going on. Or a pressure control or whatever it is, they're all just safeties. I mean,
Yeah.
switches.
Right.
Now we're getting into the age of electronics now, which is a little different, but those are just relays and switches on a board.
Yeah. Right.
Except when the whole,
Yeah.
except when one of those gives out, you got to replace the whole damn board.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting to see where the industry is going in that aspect too. Like all the extra stuff and sensors and like for instance the what is it called, the on the new refrigerant on the
Yeah,
evaporator coils, it has that leak sensor.
I was
That's
about
it's
to
just
ask you,
crazy.
have you come across any of those yet?
I have not, but I've seen like a bunch of stuff about them, and it's interesting to me that I don't know if you've seen the like location of where they are on the evaporator coils, but they're like
Is
right
it?
next to the condensate pan.
Oh, okay.
It's getting a call. I'm back. Okay, you think that would be bad to have it right next to a freaking condensate pan with water? But I don't know.
Yeah,
We'll see how
I've
that
seen
goes.
them. I've seen them. I heard about them when they were coming out, and I was like, okay, like, and then that's a whole other conversation too. I kind of actually wanted to do something on it at some point because like that is it's R32, and there's another one. I don't know if it's 454 or something
Yeah,
like that.
R454B or something like that. Yeah.
And like R32 is technically in 410A, so
Hmm.
like I don't know. I know it's slightly more flammable and all that, but like I feel like there's a lot of I don't know if it's like people are just scared of it, but there's a lot of talk behind it, and I'm like, it's technically in the one that we're using right now. Like, it's not a whole new
Right.
thing, right? But we're putting all these sensors in, all these other things in. I'm like, okay, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Just
I
making it
don't know
more
if you saw
difficult.
the video. Right. I don't know if you saw the video that Ty Brenneman put out of like him trying to catch the refrigerant on
Yeah.
fire, and like it just blew the flame out. It's like it's very, very mildly flammable. I don't think people get that it's not well, I'm sure in some
Well,
circumstances it could actually catch fire and blow up, but
yeah. I
you
mean,
know,
anything
it's
can,
very mild.
and technically,
Right.
because what I keep forgetting, and I guess now we'll see if it's still hot enough to do it. But I've been wanting to do like just leave a thermometer in my, or a psychrometer in my van when it's out in the sun, and be like, what temperature does my van get to? Because technically,
Right.
you're not even supposed to carry some of this stuff at certain temperatures. Like,
So
they're
you
gonna.
gotta take it out of your van after the day's done.
So like, well, even on past refrigerants, I'm sure there's I don't know what it is. Somebody told me, but there's a temperature level, right? Because it has those
Right.
like rupture disc. I've seen only like one person actually post that it ruptured on them, but it's because they carry them in the bed of their truck. So I guess like in direct sunlight, that thing got hot enough.
Yeah.
Which, I mean,
Interesting.
scary when you think about it. But I saw Ty's video, and that's kind of what got me thinking. I'm like, so technically, this is not really any more dangerous than what we already have on the truck.
Right. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's my thing. And like I said, I had this, idea to do a topic on it, but like that's what I don't get is R32 is out, all these, or the other one that we talked about, 454B. But
Yeah, that's what
we're getting sensors, new things in the equipment. We're getting reversed thread hoses and fittings and everything, and I'm like I don't understand the reason for all that. Like, we, as a refrigeration technician, because I do commercial refrigeration, I do a little bit of AC work, but like I have to carry 404, 134A, 410A, 407C, and back in the day I carried a couple more. Like, I already have enough. Like, I'm not mixing up my refrigerants. I don't know if
right.
reverse thread is going to make a difference for me. Like, oh, I have the wrong refrigerant. Like,
Well, there's a reverse thread adapter too, so you could just leave that reverse thread adapter on the tank that you're using
that's true.
until you use it. So it's kind of one of those things. I just feel like it's a regulation that was just put in place just because they could.
I feel like it's just trying to cause mayhem over here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because now we got
exactly
to buy new hoses, new whatever, just, or at least adapters to even hook up to the damn thing.
Right. Yeah.
Hey, but that's the HVAC industry, Today's episode is also brought to you by NAVIEN. If you haven't seen it yet, NAVIEN has entered the HVAC space in a big way with the new NPF hydro furnace. This hydronic forced air furnace delivers industry-leading variable capacity operation from 15 to 100% in both natural and propane configurations. You can learn more at navieninc.com. I also want to thank DIVERSITECH. They simplify your work. They have everything a contractor needs to complete a job. That goes from equipment mounting, condensate management, tools, maintenance chemicals, electrical components, indoor air quality, and much more. They have different branches under the same umbrella. More than likely, you're already using some of their products or tools. So go check out DIVERSITECH.com, and it's your one-stop shop for everything HVAC. So how long or how many years have you been in the trade?
I've been in for about 4 years now. I actually started during COVID, so
that must have been fun.
living in. Yeah, it was a fun time to start in the industry. So I was living in Kentucky, and I was dating my now wife, and I was kind of looking for a job up near her in Indiana, where I am now. And I found a job, and then COVID hit. So I moved up here in January. I got here in January and went up to the company, not the company I'm at now, but they gave me a start date. So I showed up on that day, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you haven't been getting our voicemails and messages and emails. Like, we need to push back your start date because of COVID." I'm like, "Oh well, thanks. I just moved, 2 hours away from, well, more than, I think it was like 6 hours, 6 hours away from where I lived currently, and just to work here, and now I don't have a job, so that's great." Luckily, that was during the time of the stimulus checks, so I got my stimulus check, and that
Oh yeah.
actually was helpful. But I was trying to find jobs other places and couldn't find jobs, obviously, any other places. And eventually I got hired there, like, I think in March of 2020. I think. No, it was May of 2020.
Okay.
Worked there for about a year and then came over to the company I'm at now. And I've been working here ever since. So,
So what was that like? Because or like I know HVAC in general, because even like the because I work at mostly restaurants, and obviously hospitals were still busy then. Like restaurants were still open,
right,
curbside, drive through, everything like that. So we stayed busy. Like I always tell people, I've never had an issue. We might have had like a week off or something like that, just to figure out the curfews,
right.
the regulations, whatever they were trying to push, and then we were back to work. So like with you being like brand new, freshly hired, what was that experience like? As far as like, because you have to go into people's homes. Like, was
Right.
that like a difficult thing to get or start in?
Yeah. Honestly, like when I started, it was like the only thing I knew. So the, like, I guess, quote unquote, regulations that they had for us to be in homes, like, per company, was basically all I like had ever experienced in the industry before. So like I didn't really have anything to compare it to per se. But like they obviously told us to wear masks inside homes and sanitize and all that, and just be careful. And I think at one point, because the company I worked for before when I started in this industry, they were a little bit more corporate run. So at one point, they told us that we needed to bring sanitizing spray with us and pull every single tool out of our bag and sanitize them in front of the customer before we walked into the home. It's just funny looking back, like the little things that businesses were trying to do to like set themselves apart from other
Oh yeah.
businesses for customers, and it's just like looking back, that seemed so over the top to me. I don't know, but I mean, I guess some people were really nervous, and for good reason, because some people were dying, but it's just funny to think about all the stuff that
The
we
extra
now.
the extra steps, precautions, and then like what kind of stuck
Exactly.
around. Um,
Right.
yeah, because I've talked about it with Jake and stuff, and he's like, we're having to wear the mask all the time, and he's like, I got yelled at for, like he was in a restaurant trying to have a drink, and like somebody yelled at him. He's like, I'm trying to freaking eat here. Like it was just a
Like I'm
weird,
eating.
yeah, it was just a weird time, and like,
Yeah.
I don't want to get too into it, but like it was just a weird time. I worked at a hospital, so that was my worry, is like I'm in somewhere where everybody's sick.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
um now, because of that, I do carry sanitizer more often than I used to. I never used to worry about that kind of stuff. I was somebody that never just, ever got sick. So I had a
Hmm.
pretty good immune system, I believe. And after that, I'm like, okay, like anybody coughs, I'm like a little more cautious, right? But uh,
Yeah.
I mean, it turned out fine. Everything is back to where it should be. I did like that curbside is like a thing now, because nobody had
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Everyone's like antisocial now, so like curbside pickup is amazing.
It's funny because I have well, like, like Target has built, I don't know if you have that, but like a huge thing in their parking lot where it's just all pickup. And
Yep.
I didn't know you could actually return in that curbside too. Like if you have a
Oh,
return, you
really?
just pull up and give them the
Wow.
bag and they take it. And
Yeah. Walmart
Walmart,
pickup is the best.
yeah, I was gonna say I got the Walmart Plus not too long ago to
Oh,
get
did
like
you?
some of the benefits, right? Because I get I'm like that too. I like to get in and out. I usually only buy a few things. I don't buy a whole bunch of crap. So like if I'm just going in and out, they have that scan and go where you just kind of scan your items as you shop, You pay it on the phone and
Right.
you walk out. Sam's Club has something like that too, so I'm used to it. And I got the Walmart Plus because of that, and then like you get like a couple other things. You get like gas discounts and all that. But
Right.
I just noticed because I just tried it. They also have, because with that you get like free shipping to your house and all that. So I was like, okay, cool, I could use that, and also free returns from your house. So like this is a whole like
Wow.
don't ever talk to anybody type of shopping. So
And you're
like
paying them to do that. That's crazy.
yeah, I got like a first year discount. I was like, yeah, I'll take it. It's worth it. But yeah, like I had to return something and I'm like, man, I haven't been able to go to the store. I've been working late, this and that. And I saw the option. I was like, oh, I didn't know this. I just left it on my front door, and sure enough, they picked it up. I got a refund and never
Wow.
saw the person.
That's awesome.
It's weird. It's just the times now, right? Like a lot of it
Right.
was because of the COVID thing, and it just stuck
Right.
around, and they kind of grew on it. And like my girlfriend uses a HEB. Well, in Texas, we have HEB groceries,
Hmm.
and curbside is just free for everybody now.
That's so awesome.
And
That's
yeah,
cool.
you always see it full of people. Like nobody likes to get down anymore.
Right.
But I will be very pissed if I like when you buy meat products or vegetables and they give you the crappiest one.
Oh yeah, for sure. And they always do
That's
the dumbest like substitutions too. That's another thing.
I hate that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I always just put no substitutions, and sometimes I'm like, oh no, I'll just get down. Like screw this.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
But so then you got in during COVID. Was there any? Did you have any difficult customers during that time? Like anybody that just did not want you in their house?
Yes. So we actually, like when I worked at the previous company, we actually offered service during the summer where we wouldn't even go inside. So, like, obviously, we have to go inside for the furnace, but
Oh
like
yeah,
we wouldn't even go inside. We would leave a filter at the door, and we'd go out to the outside unit and do what we needed out of the outside unit, and that's what we would do. And I had people that like wouldn't even open the door to grab the filter from me. They were just like, leave it at the doorstep, go do your thing outside. It was crazy time. So,
yeah. I remember doing that with like the food delivery during that time because like that was just a weird time because like I was in a I was living in an apartment at the time, right? So like
mhm.
I saw just nobody. So anything I got like food or anything like that, because like that was during the time everything was closed. It was so weird because like they would just leave the food outside. You never hear anything. They're just like it
Right.
just said delivered. So I can imagine I didn't think about it on the service side of HVAC. You're doing that contactless service. I didn't even think about that. Leaving the
Hmm.
filter, just working on the outside unit. Um, Most times you don't have to go inside unless there's an issue inside on the indoor unit, but at weird
Right.
times.
Well, my thing too is like, I mean, obviously, when you're checking like refrigerant charge, like it's good practice to try to get like a wet bulb reading, at least
Yeah,
to see if your superheat's good. So like we couldn't even do that, and
you just have to
we
trust the
were
customer, like change their filter at least.
right. Exactly. So like you gotta figure out how to do that without the indoor readings that you normally get. So yeah, it was interesting.
So how did you learn the trade? Like prior to that job, did you have any experience, or were you doing something else?
Um, very very minimal. So when I was in college, during the summer period where I wasn't in school, I worked in an industrial HVAC company just as like a summer help. And I was on factory roofs, changing filters, belts, just basic maintenance stuff, cleaning coils, stuff like that. And it was the first job I had ever had growing up where I was like interested in what I was doing. And I would get up like early to go to the job, obviously. Sometimes like 5 o'clock in the morning, and I was like excited to go to work, And that was like the first job I had had where I was excited, Like I'd worked in other just random retail jobs, and you know how that goes. Retail is retail. So it was just interesting to like be excited about my work. Um, and I would ask the people I was with questions all day long about like how the unit worked. And at one point, this one guy turned to me. He was like, "Are you gonna like do this, or you just like asking questions, ask questions?" And
You just like to bother me on my job.
right. And at that point, that's when I kind of realized, like, hey, maybe I like want to do this, you know. Um, so that's when I started like looking for jobs, and I was going to school, to business school.
I was
So
gonna
that
say
kind
what
of,
was because what you did this during like or while you were like in the summer between school and all that. What were you going to school for? Was it
yeah, I was
business?
going for business administration. So I did that for like 2.5 years, and I'm not really good in school, so I stopped that and then started working, trying to find a job in HVAC while I was working, and I
And
eventually
how did
got
you
a.
get? Well, I'm sorry. How did you get that initial like being a helper on that first gig that you had?
I just applied for it and I got it. It was kind of one of those things where, like, okay, I need a summer job and this is good money. So I think I was making decent money there. So it just kind of
Hmm.
fell into place, and they were looking for helpers, and they didn't really require any knowledge or previous experience for that. So I just kind of landed in my lap. So
Oh,
honestly,
cool.
I kind of just fell into this industry. So
Yeah, I get that a
that's
lot. I'm like, how did
normally
you get in? I
normally
just
the story.
accidentally got in. Yeah.
Yeah, that's normally the story that you hear from people, is like just either, they're generational like you are, or Gil is, or you just kind of fall into it. So I definitely fell into it, and I'm happy I did, because I mean, I I have a passion for what I do, like helping people every day, and then fixing stuff is definitely. I've always been a person who likes to use his hands. It's hard for me. It would be so hard for me to have like a desk job, because I have to be working with my
Well,
hands.
like, yes, like I feel like a lot of people in this trade, and I mean, it's not a bad thing. Like, I can't sit still. I can't be at a desk. I can't be on the computer all day. I can't be
Yep.
in one location all day. That's why I do like that for my commercial job. I do travel, so we service about 2 hours each way. Sometimes it's a pain in the ass, but like usually I like to be going, moving around, getting to different places, seeing different units and all that. So
Yeah.
like that there is something for everybody. And if you're like you said, you weren't probably good at like I was good enough in school. I was pretty smart. That's
Right.
good. I just didn't like school. I didn't like,
Mhm.
you know, doing the stuff. And like for I did go to school for HVAC, and of course we have to do our what do you call it? The core classes, whatever, English, math, all that. I was like, I want to get to the good stuff, right? Like I don't need
Mhm.
that. And it's true. Like sometimes you don't need, unless you're going for a specific career and you're going to do stuff like that. You're going to be a teacher, English teacher, whatever it is. Like, okay, you need that. But like even right now, because I know you have kids, but I have a 10-year-old, right? The homework he's
Mhm.
getting, I'm like, what the like, dude, what is this? Like,
It's, yeah. You like. I mean, I don't have any kids in school right now, but I mean, I've
okay,
definitely heard about like how the education system is going, and it's just like, I mean, my dad was a teacher for my whole entire childhood,
oh,
so like I kind of got his perspective of things, and we were homeschooled actually. So like he was a teacher, and he put us into homeschooling because
so
he
you
knew
got
how the system was. So
so you guys were homeschooled,
hmm
nice.
yeah.
But it's because like my son, and I feel bad. I feel like he gets a lot of it from me, like the forgetfulness, the ADD, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And I can see it in him. I know he's smart, but he can't concentrate. And I'm like, man, I've been there before, right? So
Right.
like, I fell into this trade because of my dad. Now my dad doesn't do what I do. He just was like, man, I could really use a refrigeration guy at my company, right? So
Right.
that's how I got into it. And I was like, man, I love this, right? I'm always thinking, solving problems, like real world issues. I don't need to do algebra or whatever the
Right.
hell else is calculus, all that stuff that I hated doing. I ain't got to do all that, right? Just solve a
Right.
problem that's in front of me, work with my hands, and get the customer going.
There's nothing better to like solving the problem that's in front of you. That especially no one else can solve. It's like so satisfying to just finally figure it out and fix it. And yeah, there's nothing like it.
So then at the well, you were like a helper, filter changer type of deal in the
Hmm.
summer, and then you went out and looked into it as a career. Did
Hmm.
you do any type of schooling for HVAC, or were you just learning and absorbing on the job?
I just learned and absorbed on the job, honestly. When I started at the company in Indiana in 2020 during COVID, um, they knew that was the extent of my knowledge, and they kind of just took a chance on me and made me a maintenance tech. I was a maintenance tech for probably about 10 months before I ran my first service call. And they just encouraged me to, like, look, just take these maintenance calls and really dive into the equipment and look at the stuff that's working. So that way, when you come across something that's not working, you know the readings that you take whenever the system is working correctly, and you know that's what the problem is when you see something that's off. So that really helped me to kind of expand my knowledge early on. Is really diving into like manuals and stuff to look at the equipment that was working correctly at that time. So that was pretty cool.
And maintenance, I know everybody hates it. I hate it too. Right now I'm dealing with it. And then the AC maintenance, I'm finishing it hopefully on Monday. And I already got
Mm,
the emails. I already got the emails that I have my ice machines up. So I'm gonna go into that now. But
mm,
that's where you learn quite a bit, right? Like you said. And
yeah.
like, and that's the thing that I got from my dad, because my dad is he did not finish high school, right? But he has a GED. He got everything he needed to get a job and, work his way up. He's really good at learning. He just another person that just not good at school, right? Like,
Right.
and that's totally okay. Now, I don't want everybody to drop out of school. Like, that's not the point of this, but like,
Right.
if you finish school, you get into college, you don't know what to do, like the trades is always a good bet. And that's the thing that I got from him, right? Is like you could be the most technical person, through your career. You could learn as much as you can. That's always going to come if you put the effort into it. But
Hmm.
like at the core, at the beginning, um it's just like you said, you go into maintenance, you see how it's supposed to work. That way when you go to a unit that's not working, you're like, oh, it's not doing this, or I'm not getting this voltage, or this is not engaging, like that. Pay attention on the maintenance, because you're going to see,
Right.
you know good versus bad type of deal. And you know you're going to get familiar with the units. That's the best thing about maintenance, is if you go in there just changing the belt, just changing the filter, like you're not going to learn anything. But like if you look around, inspect, I always tell people that too, like pay attention
Hmm.
to how it's working. And then like if you have several units, that's another thing he taught me, right? Like he doesn't know HVAC. I've gone to places where they have the same unit like three times, right? They have 3 units, 4 units, whatever it is, and I'm like, I don't know what's wrong with this one. Go open up the next one and look at it, see what it's doing, get a reading off the one that's
Right.
working. There's all
Yeah.
these little like tips and tricks you could do.
That's how you kind of set yourself apart, like early on as well. Is just like paying attention, and like you said, like doing a visual check on things and just making sure everything is kosher. I mean, the more you get into it, the more you'll see that equipment that is working, and then on a maintenance, you'll be able to catch problems, and that's the way to set yourself apart to the company you're working for and to the customers that you're dealing with as well. So,
I don't want to say it's as simple as, but like one of the main things you can do is just it's just effort. Like if you want to set yourself apart from like the everyday tech, it's just the effort you put into it. So I know
right.
you mentioned manuals earlier. That's what I did too. I read manuals after work, or like if we were putting in a new system that I've never seen before, I looked up the manual. I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, they want it installed like this. This is the sequence of operations, especially like on ice machines and stuff. They're all different. So this is a
Right.
sequence. These are the times. These are like this and that. So a lot of little things. And like you said, you go to a call that nobody else could figure out, and it was right there in the manual the whole time. Like nobody else read
Hmm.
the manual, but you did.
Yeah.
You figured it out.
And you know what the customer is going to say? Like, well, the last guy didn't do that. Like, okay, well, I'm not the last guy, so
Yeah, I used to.
RTFM.
Yeah, I used to be like, well, this company. I used to. I don't. I always tell people now, like, be confident but not cocky. I feel like I was a
Right.
little bit cocky when I started. Right, like I came out
Mm-hmm.
of school, like I thought I knew everything, and then if I went behind a company, I'm like, oh, this company didn't know what they were doing, this and that. But now
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, I do my job, and it's like, whatever the customer wants to say, like, I'm like, I don't know what they were doing, but this is what it was. I'll explain to you, what I found and what we did to it. And I'm just, I love fixing things. So like, I'm a service guy, end to end. I don't, we sell when we need to, but I'm not pushing sales. So like, I love
Right.
the satisfaction of fixing something. So that's something I got from my dad too. Like we work on like really old equipment and we can get it going too. It's up to the customer if they want to replace it or not.
Yeah. Right. I think it's important to give them that choice as well, because I mean, honestly, people are more likely to buy if they have a choice. So.
It's funny. It's funny like that because I fell into the trap of being always repairing things. Like I never wanted to sell anything. I was like, I'm gonna be the guy that always fixes everything. And
Right.
then sometimes it kind of like doesn't work out that way, right? You
Yeah.
waste a lot of time. The customer gets their patience worse thin because you're changing out this part, and then oh, this part gave out, and then this part gave out, or
Mm-hmm.
you know so then it's like, why didn't you just sell them a new unit? So like I've had to
Right.
find that, uh that fine line of like, should I repair it or should I sell it? So like recently I had this one wasn't a maintenance. I got called out to a customer that we used to have, didn't hear from them. Now we're getting like all their calls again. They always try somebody else and then they come back. We have that happen like so many times. So I get there and I'm like, okay, what AC is not working? And they're like, oh, both. Like they're all not working. I'm like, okay,
Oh,
like I don't think they gave out at the same time, but all right. I went up on the
right.
roof and I was like, I gotta be here all day because I had maintenance scheduled that day too, and I was trying to squeeze it in. So I had one blower motor gave out. Okay, cool, short it out. Let me get you a quote. The back unit is way older. I forgot to check the year on it, but it was an old train unit, and the compressor sounded like rocks, kept overamping and tripping out. I was like, okay, it at least needs a new compressor, but then it needs like a new disconnect with all the a lot of the wiring was shorted out too, like a lot of bad wiring. I was like, by the time I change all this, the contactor, a few other things, the coil is in rough shape. It's all bent in and stuff. So I was trying to get them a new unit, right? And then sure enough, they are on a budget right now. I'm like, okay, let me get you a price on the compressor. I really don't want to do it, but I'm going to give them the option, replace
Right.
or repair. Now, if they repair it, I can't guarantee too much on it. It is what it is, right? It'll get you
Mm-hmm.
another 6 months, another year. I don't know. Maybe 5 years. I don't know.
Right.
You try to check everything. I'm sure like you said, you try to check the wet bulb and your charge and all this. Like a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
newer techs won't do that. I get after my techs sometimes when they're like, that they only check their suction pressure. I'm like, that's like a quarter of the system that you
Yeah.
checked, right?
Yeah.
I was
Well,
like,
oh well, it's a fixed orifice system. That doesn't matter. Subcool still matters.
yeah, I was like, I need to know the high side, subcool, superheat, the whole everything, and then we can figure out what the problem is.
Right. Yeah.
Because I've had guys that dump in refrigerant, and it's been my own guys too. That you check the suction, right? Oh, it's low on charge. Dump it in, and I go back there, and the head pressure's through the roof.
Overcharge. Yeah. It's
I'm
crazy.
like, oh man, if you had just hooked up this other hose, you would have seen
Right.
that.
You would have seen that it was a dirty filter or the fan speed was wrong. Or, yeah.
I'm sure you guys deal with a lot of that because like and it's funny because I just went to the location the other day. Like I have one customer that forgets to change her filters all the time, and that's the calls that I get. And now every time she sees me, because like it has to get requested, and then I got to get the email, and then I got to go out there. Every time she
Mm-hmm.
sees me, she's like, "Oh, the filter." I'm like, "Yep." I was like, "I'm already here. Might as well just give it to me. I'll change it out for you."
Right. Yeah,
It's
that's
just
funny.
funny.
It's funny
Um,
because I forget to change my filter in my house all the time as well.
I don't want to. I don't
Actually,
want to. I don't want to admit it, but I think HVAC technicians are the worst on their own equipment.
oh, yeah, for sure. This summer it actually froze up. It was like the evaporator coil was a block of ice, and I went down there and I was like, filter.
We get on the customers about all their stuff, their filters and everything, and then we come home and I'm like, oh yeah, forgot to change that.
Right. We're too busy working on other people's stuff to worry about our own stuff. That's what my excuse is.
Okay, so then you got into it. You learned on the job strictly. So did you have good mentors? Did they kind of walk you through and show you? Because I had a mix of both. I had some that
Right.
like this is a shortcut, this is a this and that, and then they looked at me funny because I've had other guys that and because I had the benefit of school, right? So I knew vacuum, recover, like all these procedures to do a proper call, like on a compressor change out, whatever it was, where you open up the system, right? And I
Hmm.
talked to a couple other guys that were the same way that they learned, some way or another. But then they get down to the field, right? You get a actual job, and it's very different from textbook and all that. So, like, if I don't know if you had better mentors than I did, because I had the guys that busted out the bucket recovery, the no vacuum gauge, no nothing like that, and I'm like,
Hmm.
kind of have to bite your lip a little bit, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I know we're supposed to do it this way, but okay.
I definitely had my fair share of both, right? At the first company I worked for, there were a lot more people who, I guess just cared more about like doing it as fast as possible.
Yeah,
And then when I went to this company I'm at now, they're a lot more centered around quality of work and making it last as long as possible. So I've definitely had my fair share of both, but like I said, I kind of got into this company I am in now, like a year into my career. So I was still kind of moldable, I guess. And there's a lot more mentors at the place I am now that do really good work. So I'm really happy for that and blessed that I get to be a part of something like that. So,
I had the benefit of school, so I had that kind of education in the classroom, telling me how to do things. And it was just about me being stubborn. Like I said, like if somebody else is working, I can't correct a veteran technician. They're not going to listen to me. I can say something, but they're probably not going to do anything. But
right.
whenever I had my own call, I brought everything to the roof. You basically bring your whole van up to the roof so you can do a proper change out, get that vacuum, that pressure test, everything going. And I was just stubborn about it that way. So I've always made sure that I do it. It's just it takes a little more work to do it the right way, but at least you did it the right way, and it was done. It'll only be done one time because I've gone behind a couple of coworkers and stuff before where they didn't change a dryer. I go back there, the dryer's plugged up, right, on a compressor change
Yep.
out. Like stuff like that happens when you cut corners.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. I have a coworker that we're pretty close, and he's recently this summer got into the bigger change outs like evaporator coils and stuff like that. And we always talk about filter dryers because we sell Daikin. So some of the Daikin equipment that's a little bit older will find like a leaky coil or something. But as you know, on Goodman and Daikin,
Always.
filter dryer is where in the outside unit.
Oh, okay.
So
I don't
yeah.
do residential ones, so they have it in the
Oh, okay.
but they have it in the condenser then. Like those are
So
the
you
worst.
can't pull it all into the outside unit and isolate it at the service valves. You
I
got to
hate that.
recover everything. I know it's so dumb. Whenever I do a change out like that, I'll always cut out the filter dryer and put in a little piece of copper where it was, and then relocate it inside. So if it ever has to be done again, then you don't have to pull everything out.
But see,
So
that's what I'm saying. Like it takes more work to do it properly
right,
the first time, but at least you don't have to do it the next time because
exactly.
we have that issue here at this house. I mean, I moved in a couple years ago, but the when I moved in, the this is a Goodman, so the evaporator leaked in the attic. Right, they changed it out. It was
Hmm.
under warranty, so I didn't have to deal with it. And then I was like, okay, they put a dryer in the attic, that's good. It's by the evaporator. That's how most people
Right.
want it. I go outside and I'm like, let me just peek in here. They didn't change out
It
the
was
dryer. Yeah, it's still in there.
so
So they got two
they
dryers.
have two dryers. Great.
Now, the technician in me is like, I don't blame them, but like I would have preferred they cut it out, right? Like that's what I would
Right.
have done.
Right. Well, my thing is like by Goodman and Daikin and Amana really putting those filter, and honestly, other manufacturers, Lennox is starting to do it as well. Um, if they put the filter dryer on the inside of the outside unit, that almost, well, it not almost, but it makes it more expensive for the
Hmm.
customer to repair their equipment. Because I mean, otherwise we would just pull it all into the outside unit and not have to charge them for new refrigerant if that was the case. But I mean, can't really
Making
speak to what
That's what
manufacturers
I'm
choose
saying.
to do.
A lot of these new things is like just causing mayhem on the service side, because
Right.
even on like stuff that I do, the walk-in coolers and freezers, stuff like that, I love when it's a leak in the evaporator or a TXV leaking or power head messed up, whatever it is on that, because I can pump it down, do what I need to do, and usually the dryer's outside of the condenser. Like all that is easy work for me, right? But like you
Right.
said, if they're making it now on residential systems, like where it's in there, I look at it. That's why I said like the company that came out, like I don't blame them. Like that's a lot of extra work, and they were doing a warranty call at
Mm-hmm.
that, and I'm like, I don't blame them, but I hate that they did that. So like,
Yeah.
it's a lot more work dealing with that kind of stuff, and they're I guess they do it just to ensure that there's a dryer in the system, right? I guess
Yeah.
like it's already
Right.
built in, but then they don't think like, oh, it's gonna break down. It has to be worked on. Like they don't think about that.
Right. Well, my thing is, why wouldn't they just like add a stub? I guess that would make shipping harder, but you see what I'm saying? Maybe like add a stub or something that had like a mechanical joint on the liquid line or something like that. You know?
I don't know.
I don't
Some
know.
of these manufacturers, including tool manufacturers, should get with us in the field so we can figure out this stuff.
Yes, for sure. Yeah.
But yeah, because well, you mentioned Daikin. I deal with a lot of Daikin. That's what our Johnstone pushes. They do have a
Mm-hmm.
lot of leaking coils though. I mean, they're cheap, good, affordable for the customer. But
Yeah.
I had a couple of compressors that blew out the pins. I don't know why. They just blew out.
Wow.
Uh, and I checked everything, and that's one that we do maintenance on. There was no dirty coil or anything like that that would have
Wow.
caused a higher head pressure. Just blew out the pin.
Hmm.
And we had another one that just recently blew out the pin, and I have like two leaking coils right now that I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
But
I've heard
but
the
they're cheap.
RTUs aren't very good. Yeah. The residential side is a little bit better. Um, their warranty on the residential side is pretty good. So,
Well, that's what I do
and
like. I mean,
from what I've experienced.
yeah, that's what I do like, since like, especially because I've been going to that Johnstone forever. Like anything with warranty, like they'll honor it, they'll take care of it. It's always covered, it's always good to go. So like that, I mean, I do like that. It's just I wish it would last a little bit more.
For sure. Yeah. That's
And I had
everything
to
nowadays.
and I had to deal with a bunch of new counter guys recently. So I had that one that blew out the pin on me.
Hmm.
Um, I was like, okay, we just installed this a year ago. Let me go just swap it out. I'll take care of you. All that stuff. I went there and the new counter guy refused to give me the compressor. I was like, dude, I bought it last year. I don't even know if it's a year old, but I bought it last year. It's under warranty. It has to be. So I had to go pull out one of the guys from the back, because all the guys that I used to deal with, they're all in the back now. They oversee, or I don't know what they're called. They're
Hmm.
supervisors, managers, whatever. So I had to go pull out one of them, and I'm like, look, your guy does not want to give me this compressor. Can you go talk to him? And he's like, no, he should be, and this and that. I had to go out there, and he had to scold him, and he's like, just give him the damn compressor. And that's another thing, right? I have to build relationships with the supply house. Like everywhere you go, you got to build a relationship, because if they
Right.
had just told me no, and I'm like, okay, like leave, and I don't get my compressor, but like I said, I knew the guys there, and I was like, no, come on, guys, you got to help me out here.
Right. Yeah, that's crazy. A year old and he wasn't going to give you the compressor.
It's because he's like, oh, it's because it's asking me for a homeowner. I'm like, it's not a residential system. This is a RTU. I put it in. It's either under, just put my name or your name. Like, I don't know. Yeah. So then you've been on this 4 years, right? Like I guess doing what you're doing, service and all that. Do you
Right.
feel like you have a good grasp on it? Like, are you comfortable yet?
I mean, you're going to be learning in this industry for as long as you're in it. I mean, there's always going to be new technology coming out or stuff that you hadn't heard before. It's always important to keep ourselves educated on stuff, you know. So yeah, it's crazy. That's a great question because no, I don't feel like I know much, but like
Well, I mean,
I feel confident to figure out problems that are put in front of me. But there's always something new to learn.
there's always, and just like to be a good technician, like you said, always learning. So like, because I've been doing this 17 years, so it's been a lot longer than you. But
Right.
when I started, it was manuals. It was asking for help. I did not like to ask for help. That kind of hindered me in the beginning because I thought I should know this. I went to school and I rode along with whoever it was, which was more on the residential side. But I was like, I should still know this, right? So I didn't like to call tech support. I didn't like to call anybody. That changed after I got into some that I just could not figure out, right? So not only is it important to learn yourself, like obviously manuals or literature, or now it's easy, YouTube, whatever it is that however you learn best, right? Podcasts
Hmm.
are a lot of them are educational now, really good. So like you can learn that way, but also ask for help. So like now it took me a while, but I'm like, okay, I'm gonna start asking tech support for help and trying to figure out problems. Because like even if you call tech support for something simple, like I had one that, because I tell people like sometimes you call tech support just to know about any common problems or issues that they've had. Because I had one that was a digital controller, and I was like, I don't know, like I couldn't figure out what it was doing because it's not in the manual. They're like, oh yeah, that code is not in the manual, but it's doing this, right? But it's obsolete. We had issues with it. We're gonna send you what we're using now. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. I would not have known that if I didn't call tech support. You gotta be comfortable like asking questions and just taking in all the information.
Important to remind yourself like it's okay to ask those questions and okay to ask for help if you need it.
So like for me, I always say that like the halfway point of my career, like so it took me like 7 or 8 years to actually be comfortable. Like it does take a
Hmm.
while to where I can be like, because like I had that conversation with Kenny, Refrigeration Man. I think you're on TikTok,
Hmm.
right? I think you've seen him.
Yeah. Uh
And
huh.
I loved the video that he did where he's like, when he started, going to a job site and you're driving, you're just paranoid. You're just straight up like, what is it? What could it be? You're like racking your brain
Right.
around it. At a certain point, when you get comfortable, you're like, just bring it on, right? Any
Right.
unit you put in front of me, I'll figure it out because I'm going to go through my diagnostic procedures and I'm going to figure it out that way. So, like, for me, it was like that 7, 8 year mark is where I
Hmm.
finally got to that level of comfort. And now I'm just like, I don't care. Like, just, I actually like the challenging stuff because I prefer
For
to
sure.
be challenged. I prefer to be like, oh, I don't know what that is. Like, I want to figure it out. That's how I feel.
I think that's a good point too. But I think it's also important to remind ourselves, like if we're newer and are thinking that way, like, oh, what is it? What is it? Like, I just got to get there, and you're overthinking the notes that are put in the ticket, about what's going on. Um, just to remind yourself not to overthink it, because then you overthink it and you kind of get set into, okay, this is what it's gonna be, and then you get there and you change out a filter because you think it's a filter and it's not a filter. So yeah, I think it is important just to keep your mind clear of what you think it is until you get there and start doing your
Just
diagnostic
the only
process.
thing you can do is look at the symptoms, right? And go
Hmm.
from there. You can't like be like, oh, it's gonna be this or it's gonna be that.
Right.
Um, because I've had people I've gone behind a lot of people that condemn like a compressor or something like that. And I'm like, okay, like why would you, or why would it give out? So then dirty coil or something restriction, like, and then we fix that and the compressor starts up, right? So like it's not always, and that's what I try to tell the guys that work for me, like don't jump to like all the way like bad compressor or whatever it is. Like we're gonna go, it's always, almost always something simple or a basic thing, right? Like you said, like airflow filters. um I usually try to hook up my gauges last, right? I was taught
Mm,
that it's usually like 90% electrical, right? Check all your wirings, check all this, and sure enough, you'll figure out that it's usually something simple.
right.
So
Yeah.
for you, is there anything, because like for me, like mentioned that other one that I always, and I always bring it up because it, like I said, it was kicking my ass. I'll never forget that. There's things that you never forget. It's gonna be like the stuff that really troubled you. You spent all day trying
Hmm.
to figure it out, or it's gonna be something, you know, or like when you fix something, or there's all these little things that you remember along the way that you'll never forget. Like, is there anything that helped you or that that stays with you, learning, you know, something you experienced throughout your career?
Yeah, that's a great question. I always tell I this story. It maybe not as the most technical story, but it's definitely something that stays with me. Like obviously, I'm in residential, so I deal with a lot of people, and we have our difficult customers. I'm sure you've experienced that, you know. But it's always important to remind ourselves that we are dealing with people at the end of the day. Everyone is different. And one story I always say is I went out to this one house, and this lady is a little older, but it was a no cool situation. So I get out there. It was like one of the hottest days of the year. It was really hot in her house. I think it was like upwards of almost 90 degrees in her house. But I get there and I walk in the door, and she's like, "Well, before you get started, what can you do for me for free today?" And I was like, "Oh, okay, so that's how this call's gonna go." You know, I mean, I explained to her, you know, I'll do what I can, but I do have to charge for any parts I replace, and you know, we have a trip fee at the company I work for. We charge to go out there and knock on the door. So I said, I do have to charge you that today, but I'll be upfront with you with any costs we have. So I ended up finding that the circuit board on the furnace was bad. So I think we ended up quoting her like at least, I think it was at least $500 to replace that circuit board. And I go up to her, I'm like, "This is what it's going to cost to replace the circuit board. What do you have?" And she's like, I have like $100 to my name. So, like, do what you can with that. So I ended up calling my boss, and she was a nice lady. So I wanted to try to see if maybe we could do something for her. You know, maybe put her up on some type of payment program or something through our company, just to take care of her at that point. And like my boss ended up saying, just do the circuit board for free. We'll cover it. So which was awesome of him. So I did
Hmm.
that. I went and got the circuit board, came back, installed the circuit board. The fan kicked on, and I was getting voltage out to the outside unit to kick the compressor on. And the fan on the outside unit would turn on, but the compressor wouldn't. So I'm like, oh great. So I go out here, I'll go out there, and the compressor is it's out on thermal overload. So I tried to cool it down, I couldn't get it to cool down. I couldn't get it to kick on, no matter what I did. Like I checked the capacitor, I did everything I could. I couldn't get that compressor to kick on. I think I was there for like an hour trying to get it to cool down and kick on, and it just
Yeah.
wouldn't. It was stuck. So unfortunately, I had to like go in there, and you know, I had my head hanging low, and I was like, that's all I can do for you with like what you have for us. Like, you know, you only have $100. And I was totally expecting her to be like upset because it was really hot in her house. You know, that's a situation where that's scary. You know, you don't want to live in a house like that. And she obviously
No.
didn't have any money to go to a hotel. She didn't have any family in the area. so she was kind of just stuck there. Um, and I was fully expecting her to be upset and like maybe even cry, but she looked at me. She was just like, "Thank you for so much for all your help today." And I was like, "What?" She's like, "Thank you so much for your hard work." I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's such a cool like stance to have on that situation." It's like she just thanked me for my work, and we like ended up talking for a little bit longer about everything, and like I wished her luck, and I was about to leave, and she said, "Well, I love you," and I was like, "Thank you, thank you, that's so nice." And she's like, "Are you gonna not say it back to me, really?" I was like, "You're really gonna make me say I love you back." And I sure did. I said I love you back, and that was it. But it was just such an impactful visit, that kind of brought me back down to earth and reminded me that we do work with people, and um,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, we try to take care of those people as much as possible because we offer a service for a certain amount of money. But at the end of the day, we are helping people as much as we can by fixing their stuff. So,
And there's a lot that you can do for a customer. I mean, you did as much as you could. Obviously, the compressor, if it gives out, it gives out. But
right,
um, I've had those conversations on the flip side with the guys over on HVAC nights. But like how the customer treats you is also um that kind of motivated you to do a little bit more, right? Like
right,
customers need to realize also, like, if you're a jerk with your service technician, they might just want to leave, and not even. I've had customers that treat me like crap, and I've just like, you know what, I'm not even going to touch it, I'm not going to do anything, I'm going to leave, right?
yeah,
But I've had customers like yours that they're just thankful that you took the time to do whatever you could, right? Because and that's the mindset that I had before. Like I said, I always wanted to repair everything, and sometimes I went a little bit too much into it, and I'm like, I just can't fix it, right? Like, I mean, you
mm-hmm.
did what you could. You thought it was going to be just the board, and man, I've had those. You fix one thing, something else gives out, and then something else gives out. And I'm like, oh man, like, I'm sorry, I can't do anything for you. Um,
Right,
so just be honest with the customer and all that good stuff. But that, I'm sure, like you said, it stays with you. And that, I know you said it's not a technical thing, but it does help you now, I think, with your either customer service or even your troubleshooting, because you're trying to do what you can. You're not like a sales tech that's out there like,
right,
oh, that thing is like 8 years old, you need a new system. No, you're going to try
yeah,
and fix it first.
right, yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's definitely helped me.
It helps you, like I said, it helps you as a service technician, like calls like that, because I've had my fair share of like good customers and bad customers, and that you learn from each experience. um and any of them that are like impactful stays with you, and that's going to be the technician that you become. Because I mean, you're only in
Right,
this 4 years. I thought you were doing this a lot longer, just based off of your videos that you do. But it's going to build your character and your skills as a technician.
for sure. Yeah, definitely.
So why did you start posting? Because you have like what, you actually, when I had you on my list, you were not anywhere near the amount of followers that you have now. Because your
Yeah,
Instagram blew up.
it
I
did.
think you
Yeah,
do TikTok, and are you on YouTube?
I I have a YouTube account that has like my
Oh,
HVAC.NATE, but I don't
okay.
post on there yet. I just honestly like the what I want to do with YouTube. Like I just don't have the time for. Like I don't have the time
It's
to edit
yeah.
like a 15-minute video. Like the short form content is I feel like where I thrive the most right now.
You can
So
also you
maybe
can
I'll do
also
YouTube in
do
the future.
you can also do YouTube Shorts,
That's true. That is true.
or
Yeah.
start there.
Yeah, that is true. That way, if I do start to do YouTube, I already have a following for my shorts. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I haven't really thought
There's
about
some
that.
channels that just do shorts, and like that's
Oh,
their thing. And then I've always tried to do a little bit of everything, so like mine's a mix. But what got you into the social media stuff?
that's actually funny that you asked that because, in a sense, it was you and Gil. um, I, You actually went on Gil's podcast. I think it was like over a year ago. And I remember you guys were talking about like making content. And I think it was you that said, like, if you're interested in like starting to make content, just start filming yourself, see what happens, you know? And I kind of took that advice and I was like, well, I mean, I had been interested in making content for a little bit. But I just like made a commitment to myself for the next like month or two to try to post every single day on TikTok. And that's where I kind of started, was TikTok. I just posted some dumb thing every day and eventually found CapCut and I started editing my videos on CapCut. And then it kind of took off from there into where I'm now, you know? So, thank you for your advice and just starting to post. And yeah, that's kind of
That
where it started.
that's the hardest part, I think, is like
Mm-hmm.
just doing it. And then once you get into it, it's like a flow. So once you get into the
Right.
flow, it gets easier and easier. So I didn't know that. Like I've seen you pop up. I couldn't remember when you started, and I just know that you got a lot of traction pretty quick, or like in a time period you had a lot of followers and all that. Like I know on Instagram, on TikTok, I've been in and out of TikTok, but like
Right.
on your Instagram, you do, stuff on your service calls or anything like that, or like these tech tips, stuff like that. Anything. And I've told people, like, anything, even if you're just a filter changer,
Right.
someone else is a filter changer watching you do the same thing they do, right? So like any content is good content. So I'm glad that you started, and you're still early in your career. So a lot of the stuff that you're doing is new guys. They're gonna see that. They're gonna
Right.
relate to that, right?
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. It's been
And
fun. Like you kind of said, like I blew up like randomly on Instagram. Like, it was literally one video that just I got like 3 million views from that one video and gained like 10K followers. And what's funny is that video, I spent like 5 seconds editing that video. Like it was
was
one of
it
those
even
things where
was it even like a educational video, or was it random, or
no,
what?
it was just random. Like it was kind of like a tip. Like I posted a video of me pulling the whole fan and sides off of a Goodman unit at once. So like
Oh, I've
lifting
seen
the
that
whole
one.
thing up. Yeah. So that one blew up. It got like 3 million views on that, and I was like, that's the dumbest video. It's always the ones, and I'm sure you know, it's always the ones that you don't spend the most time on that you get the
And
most
it's
views and likes
hard,
from.
and it's hard to replicate stuff like that,
Yeah.
because the one for me was, and it was a tip that I took from somebody else, but like I showed it over on YouTube, like, because I have a manifold and I have the corded clamps to it, right? So
Uh
like
huh.
I use these little clips to secure them, and I got it from a guy on YouTube who told me how to, or recommended it to me or something like that. So then that video is another, it's only a few seconds long. It's just me clipping it,
Right.
and that thing got I don't know if it got 1 million views, but it got a whole bunch, and like my Instagram like went from nothing to something.
Right. It's crazy how that happens. Like, it literally happened within a span of like 2 weeks, I think. I got that many follows, and it's been interesting for sure. Like,
And that
it's,
and that just goes to my point. Like if you just post whatever, like it
right.
the smallest things could be either helpful or just entertaining to somebody, and
Yeah.
then that's what starts your Instagram, YouTube, whatever it is that you want to do.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's
Because
been fun. It's opened up.
when I started, I didn't know what the hell I was doing, and then it
Yeah.
grew, right? Like,
Yeah. I actually like deleted most of my videos from when I started because honestly, they're so like, bad quality and like, I'm sure you hold yourself to like a standard of like what videos you put out, and I'm the same way. Like I like to make my stuff look good, and I didn't really want that on my channel anymore. So
that's like that's also the hardest part now, is looking back at my old stuff.
uh huh.
So like for the longest time, I had to leave that stuff up. Like mostly I'm talking about my YouTube channel, but like I left it up because it had a lot of views, it had a lot of
Right.
engagement and stuff like that. So I'm like, that's good for my channel. But then after a while, I was like, I don't want I don't want that to be the first thing people see, right? So like I need to start filtering my videos a little bit. So
Right.
yeah, the first, and I always tell people the first anything that you do, videos or like I said, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, they're gonna be your worst. That's just the way it is.
Mhm.
And people will relate to you because of who you are and how you do
Right.
things. And your videos are just gonna get better and better and better, right? So like just post. I'm glad that you did. Like me, I never thought all this would happen. I am such an introvert, and I've said that because I'm in
Same
commercial.
here.
I like to be in and out. I don't like to talk to people, but this is a podcast. I'm doing this now, and it's been fun. So I don't want to keep you too long. We've been here over an hour. Time kind of flies by
Okay.
on these things. But is there anything that you want to end on? Any advice for like the new guys that listen to this? You know,
I mean, the new
being in
guys,
this 4 years.
yeah, the newer guys, I still consider myself a newer guy, right? But I guess my advice to the newer guys is just like care, and figure out if you do care. And if you don't care, then maybe try to find something else because you got to really put in the work in this industry to be a good technician. And we have enough people who don't care. So if you don't care, then get out in a nice way. um, I, I mean, I feel like that's the best advice I have for the newer guys is just figure out if this is what you want to do. And if you want to do it, then do it to the best of your ability. So,
Yeah, because the guys that don't care, those are the ones that I usually go behind because they leave a mess. I had one that I went up to and they left like 3 compressors on the rooftop and contactors everywhere. Like we had to do a cleanup before we even, started there. And
right,
the guys that leave a mess in any unit, stuff like that, drains hanging off, like there's a bunch of stuff. Like those are the guys that don't care, right?
right.
You set yourself apart if you care and you put in the effort, the technical abilities, the skills, and all that. You learn
It'll
that on
come.
the way. Yeah, it'll
Hmm.
come. Like there's no doubt about it. But the attitude, the are you going to learn after work? Are you going to care about what you do? Are you going to put effort into it? I mean, you don't have to love it as much as like some of us do. Like I know I feel a little crazy that I go to work during the day. I come home, I watch Instagram, YouTube, whatever it is, and I watch more HVAC, listen to
My wife makes
podcasts. Like
that all the time too.
like you don't have to love it as much as we do, but like care
Right.
enough at work to do your job the right way, and it makes a big difference. Like I always tell people, that's what sets you apart from other technicians, right? Like a lot of them go out there with a what do you call it? Like they just focus on what's wrong and they just change out like one little thing. I always tell people that part probably gave out because of something else. So just check the whole system, stuff like that. Dirty coils. Why did the contactor give out? Why did this give out? Like just make sure you go down the line
Right.
and kind of go through it, see the whole picture of the whole thing, and that's where the effort, the care comes in. Like, and I've used to talk about like building habits, right? You go into maintenance, you go on a service call, the zip ties, the screws, like all these little
Mm.
things, keep it neat, right? It's gonna
Don't be
suck
lazy.
when don't
Yeah.
be lazy. It's gonna suck when you start, right? It takes a few extra minutes versus like just throwing everything in and leaving. It takes a few extra minutes, but that's what sets you apart. And with
Yeah.
it's a habit with time, with the more times you go out, the more maintenance you do, the more this and that, it's gonna be second nature. You're just gonna do it. So like build those
Right.
good habits and do it right the first time.
Yeah. And on to build on that a little bit. I mean, you mentioned like do the extra thing and like use zip ties and all that. I mean, the customer is going to end up seeing you going the extra mile eventually, right? And if that's the case, if they see you, going the extra mile, they're going to be more apt to use you in the future and kind of prefer you instead of trying to go with a cheaper company. And that's when you can build your business and charge a little bit more for the higher quality work that you present to people. So
You realize that like after you've done it,
mhm.
even like I know we run a business, but as a technician too, like if you do it the right way, If you care about what you do and you're respectful to the customer, you respect, like in your case, it's their house, it's their equipment. I respect everybody at my wherever I'm at, and I tidy up stuff. I make sure I clean where I'm at, like all these little things that you do. Make sure you check everything that way you can. I always My main thing for checking further down the line, right? If I'm replacing just a contactor, just a thermostat, whatever it is, I still check everything just so I can be like, hey, this fan motor doesn't sound good, or this compressor doesn't sound good, this blower wheel, whatever it is, um, capacitor is out of range. I don't know, whatever it is. I want to do it to cover my ass, but they
Mm,
appreciate like, oh, these are the repairs that we might need, right? And you never know,
right.
they might tell you on the spot, change it out, right? I
Mm,
don't want it to give out, change it out right now. Um,
right.
and like you said earlier about they might actually spend the money, they might actually buy the unit. Like if you're just upfront with them, give them the options, and you're respectful about it, they might just be like, you know what, just do it. Like you're already here,
Right.
or we trust you, just do it.
Hmm.
It goes a long way.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, I appreciate you for coming out, man, and thanks for
Thank you for
taking the
having me.
time. Everybody watching and listening, I appreciate you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time.